Hello, everybody. It is Melissa with Amsterdam. Nope. Hey, everybody. It's Melissa with Avondale Art Studio, and I want to say welcome to all of my fellow acrylic fluid artists out there, and anybody who's a newcomer to the field or even a seasoned veteran and you just want to see how somebody else does something, because hey, that's how we learn and grow, right? We learn from each other. We grow by learning and watching other people. At least that's how I learn and grow. So I'm always watching people, which leads me to want to do something for others to watch. So tonight I'm going to show you how I personally mix my base paint for Dutch pours. This is Flood Floetrol, which is the American version of Floetrol. I'm going to use Amsterdam's Titanium White in their standard series. And I'm just going to use regular water. So I have a regular kitchen scale. I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to zero it out. It is on 0. I work in grams. You can work in anything that you want to. Milliliters, fluid ounces, ounces, whatever. I work in grams, so I make sure I am always on grams. I got my cup. I believe this is a 16-ounce cup. But I know in my mind the next piece that I'm going to do, that I'm actually making this base paint for, is an 18 by 18 piece. And 18 by 18 divided by 28 tells me that I need about 12 ounces per base paint for the base of that Dutch pour. So I'm basically going to mix to those figures today. So I'm going to put my cup on there. Now currently when I do that, my cup is actually being measured on the scale. I don't want that. I want it to be 0. So I'm going to do what is called tearing it out. T-A-R-E. I'm going to tear it out. And that just is a button that I push. T-A-R-E. And it basically takes my scale back to 0. So now my cup is on there, but it is not being measured. It just says 0. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cap off. And I'm mixing at a ratio of 80 grams of Floetrol, 40 grams of paint, and 25 grams of water. That is my ratios. That's my mixture. That's my compilation. That's my magic concoction. That's my whatever you want to call it. That's what I use when I make my Dutch pours. 80% Floetrol. Not 80%, my bad. 80 grams of Floetrol. 40 grams of paint, and 25 grams of water. So knowing that I need 12 ounces, I did the math on that to figure out how many I need 12 ounces of paint. So I did the math, and I asked Siri, because I don't do math. Who am I kidding? I said, hey Siri, how much is how many ounces is 300 and sorry, my bad. How many ounces is 312? Man, I can't even talk about math without even messing it up. I asked Siri, how many grams is 12 fluid ounces? And she gave me a total, and that's where I have to get to it. So I know to do that at my ratio of 80, 40, 25, I need 200 grams of Floetrol. So here we go. Well, my scale went off on me because I waited too long, so here's a little trick. Now I can't turn my scale back on the way that it is and expect to be accurate, because it's going to measure the cup back inside of that, right? It's going to give me the amount of paint that's in there, but it's also going to count the cup. So I have to basically trick my scale into thinking that I don't have my cup on there anymore. So what I'm going to do is take it off, turn my scale back on. I have an empty cup, the same size as that one that I'm using. I'm going to put it back on here. I'm going to let it measure it, and then I'm going to tear it back out again, T-A-R-E. So I do that. It comes off. I put this back on there, and my scale says 0, except I didn't do it right. Okay, put it on, let it measure it, tear it out, back to 0, put this back on. Wonderful. It's telling me that I am at 180 grams right now. without measuring my cup because I teared it out. I told the machine to do not count the cup. So I need 19 more grams of Floetrol. Okay. I'll put the lid back on this in case you're keeping track and haven't taken notes yet. Then I know that to get to the amount of paint that I need in here for my 18 by 18, I need 100 ounces of my paint. Essentially, I'm doing a 2.5 times ratio of my 80, 40, 25. So 80, 80, and half of that is 40, so that's 80 and 80 is 60, that's 200. And then 25, 25 is 50, half of that is 15, so, or no, my bad. 40 and 40 is 80, and half of that is 20, so add those together, you get 100. And then 25 and 25 is 50, and half of that is like 62 and a half. So those are the numbers that I'm using. So I need 100 grams of paint. I'm going to zero my scale back out because I like to work in the zeros. I'm going to add 100 grams of paint. Trying my best to be as close as I can, but it does not have to be perfect. If I went over by 2 or 3, I'm okay with that. If I went over by like 6 to 7, I will somehow get rid of it. Okay? Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stir this and mix it up until it is nice and smooth, and then I will add the water. Okay? So I am currently stirring my Floetrol and my Amsterdam paint. I have not yet added the water. And I can tell it is pretty thick right now without the water. It mounds up and leaves a significant trail on top, because it's just paint and Floetrol at this point. Okay, clean my stick off. I'm gonna scrape my sides to make sure I pretty much got it. There's no paint or Floetrol sticking to the side. Give it another stir. Now I'm going to take my stick out because I don't want my stick being measured when I put it back on there. I'm going to put it right back on the scale, and if I did it in enough time, there we go. See, I'm back at 100, which means it's measuring my paint. So I'm going to zero it out. I have to zero it out twice on my scale because when I zero it out once, it takes me back to the total of what the paint and the Floetrol is, and I don't want to know that. I want to go back to 0. So now I'm at 0 again. I'm going to take my water, and I'm going to put in roughly 63 grams of water. And there we go. That's 65. I'm not worried about those extra 2 grams. I'm going to leave it, and then I'm going to stir it. Okay. Oh, my back is hurting today, guys. I don't know why. It's probably because I'm getting old. I'm 51. That's old, right? That's getting old. That's older than 50. Okay, so this is me just adding in my paint to my Floetrol. I'm sorry, this is me adding in my water to my Floetrol and my paint mixture. I first added my Floetrol. I then added my paint. I mixed those two together. And then I add my water and I mix that. And that, my friends, is what I use for my Dutch pour base. I like to stir it really, 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 really well. If you didn't catch that, super well. I don't want any chunks. I don't want any gooeys. I don't want any boogers, whatever you want to call them. I want it to be nice and smooth. I want it to blow out nicely when I use my hair dryer to blow it across the canvas like Molly does from Molly's Artistry. If you do not watch her, she's amazing. If you also do not watch Canella from Canella Sirocco Art, she is amazing as well. And Canella is especially amazing because she will, if you message her about something, she will respond to you. She will get back to you in a very timely manner, which is very nice because I know with the amount of followers that they have, they probably get a lot of comments. So stir around the edges. Make sure I got it all. Stir a little bit more. I'm gonna clean off my brush. Not my brush, man. I used to be a furniture artist before we had to stop because of my husband's lung condition. So I still have some of that terminology, that lingo floating around in the old noggin. So this is looking pretty good. You can tell I'm not just, giving it a good, like 30-second stir. I've been probably 2 or 3 minutes at this point stirring it, and I'll probably continue to stir it for at least another 30 seconds to a minute. Maybe it's overkill. I don't know. But I want it to be smooth. Okay, let's bring that up and see what it looks like. If I could show you. Now see, that's got a little bit of a trace on top. It comes off nice. And I'm not holding my stick up too high. Let's see if it bounces back and is elastic when it's done pouring off. Yep. Okay, bounced up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So that part's good. And it's not leaving a huge mound, but it is leaving a mound with a little bit of a trace. So I will probably add a little bit more water. And every time is different, you guys. You start off with the ratios that you want. I don't measure that when I do that. I just add a little bit here in time. You start off with the ratios and the measurements that you want, but you might accidentally add 2 extra grams here or 3 extra grams there, or you might leave out some stuff, an extra gram here or there. So it always makes a difference. So at the very end, when I'm, like you just saw me do, I test it. And if I feel like I have too much trace on top, meaning it's leaving a mound and then trace longer than I want it to, I will just add a little bit of water until I feel like I've got it where I want it. So in case you're just coming in towards the end, this is my recipe for how I make my Dutch pour base. I am using 80 grams of American Floetrol, 40 grams of paint, and 25 grams of water. And then mix like hell. Mix, 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 mixity, mix, 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 until you feel good about it. Until it meets your criteria. For me, my criteria is I don't want it to leave a big trace when it goes over, and I want it to be smooth. That's a little bit better. It's a little bit better. I'll probably add a little bit more water. Just a smidgeroo. That's a technical term, smidgeroo. Okay. I can tell just by putting my stick in that one now, that's going to be perfect. You just get a feel for it eventually. You get a feel for how much thickness you need and how much smooth quality like milk you need. And of course, that's all personal preference. If you don't mind if it leaves a little bit of a trace, I don't know that it will make a huge difference on your Dutch pour, although it just might make it so that your paints don't flow as easily across the top of the white paint because they're coming up against some resistance there. I just like to make sure that my paint is as flowy as possible. And because I'm mixing it with Floetrol, I'm automatically going to have more resistance in it. It's going to be denser than if I just mix paint and water like Molly does from Molly's Artistry. Molly's Dutch Pour base is super thin. Like super thin. But it works really well for her. And all she does is paint and water. Okay, that's looking much better to me. Can you see it now? Very little mound. And it does leave a little trace, but that trace almost disappears immediately. Okay? So to me, that is good. That is my recipe. Alright? If you have any questions, please reach out. Leave them in the comments, whatever. If you have comments, I'd be happy to hear those too. If you have your own magical concoction that you'd like to share with my audience, please do that as well. Again, I do feel like we all learn from each other, and that's what we're here for in this community, is one, have fun, be creative, let yourself go. As Eminem would say, lose yourself. But other than that, let's learn from each other. Okay? Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you next time. I appreciate you watching. Bye-bye.